Good day, all Inderes TV viewers and listeners. Today we are talking about Faron Pharmaceuticals as an investment with Analyst Antti Siltanen. I sincerely recommend you to read the whole extensive report. If you're more interested about the company, I put the link in the description below. In this video, we are walking through the basics, what Faron does in very simple terms, because I think this is one of the most complicated companies we follow here at Inderes. But Antti, what do Faron do in very simple terms?
Well, Faron is a drug development company and they have 3 drug candidates. And basically Faron is organizing funding to undertake clinical trials and to develop these drugs and trying to get those into market. So basically it starts with phase 1 clinical trials, testing for the appropriate dosing of the drugs and initial safety studies. And then when the clinical program develops, in the end they will try to use larger patient populations and test for the efficacy of the drug before then getting into market.
How long it usually takes and how many phases and how many years it takes to develop a new drug and have it in the market?
Well, first there's a research phase and preclinical phase that take a couple of years and cost several millions. But then the clinical phase with patient trials, it typically takes about 8 years. And the cost varies a little bit, but it's at least tens of millions of euros. It starts with phase 1 trials that are kind of small, about 10 or a few dozen patients, where first we test dosing and then kind of initial safety to verify that there's no very severe safety issues. And then in phase 2 there's a little bit more patients, a few dozens typically, testing for the efficacy or initial efficacy and also safety. And then in phase 3 trials they are dozens or hundreds of patients typically, and those then give this very high quality data on whether the drug is efficacious, useful, and actually treats the disease, and also that there are no kind of hidden safety issues in the drug. And after that, there's also then the regulatory phase where the regulators look at the data and see if it's something that can be approved for selling.
What are these 3 drug candidates Faron has, and what is the most important drug candidate?
Well, the most important is clearly called bexmarilimab, or as the company and we call it in the report, Bex in short for convenience. It's developed for cancer and it functions by activating the immune system. So basically it turns the immune system on and the inflammatory system on, and the immune system will attack cancer cells and kill cancer cells. This is a very broad drug in terms of its applicability. So because of the mechanism of action of activating the immune system, it doesn't really matter if the cancer is in the tumor is in the stomach or in the other location. So it can be used for many different types of solid tumors and also for cancer, blood cancers. So basically the potential with Bex is very big. There's also some competition, but we can talk about that a little bit more. And then there's Traumakine, that is developed for organ protection. So for example, if there's severe inflammation in lungs, it can be used to protect the kind of overt inflammatory response that is damaging lungs, for example. Traumakine has been already in these later stage clinical trials, and previously the results have not supported the commercialization. So now Faron is kind of looking what to do with Traumakine next. So we haven't at this point included that in our estimations, but we will look at it when we get more information from the company. Then the third drug candidate is called hematokine, and that affects the blood marrow and specifically the hematopoietic stem cells. Those are the cells that kind of create our blood. So when our blood has some kind of imbalances, for example, some type of immune cells are very low in number, then hematokine could help in that kind of situation. That is a very early stage drug candidate. So the company is now applying for the approval to start the clinical program. And if that's successful, the clinical program would probably start later this year.
If there's going to be any cash flow in the far future, it's more probable that it will come from BEX. So if we think about BEX, what are the biggest risks and uncertainties, and how do you approach estimating the future revenue of BEX?
Well, I guess the main risk, well, basically, if we look at risk, we kind of divide that into two categories. First, there's kind of a regular business risk, for example, what the market share will be and what the price of the drug will be, and then that type of risk. The other category of risk is what we call binary risk, and that's related to the research program. So basically, it can go either way. If the data from the clinical trials is not supportive, for example, it shows that the safety of the drug is not good enough, then that program will shut down and the value of the drug candidate will be close to zero. And then the other option is that the data from clinical trials is good and the drug goes into market, and then the payoff and profits are really high. So we kind of try to take this binary situation into account in our analysis, so we can make predictions on the probability of success of the drug development. We don't have to go into details here, but there's more details in the report. So first we make estimations of what the sales of the drug would be if it goes to market, and we multiply those predictions with the probability of getting to market. So that way we kind of get a balanced view between the very negative and very positive paths that may take place.
You hinted to competition previously. So how much there is competition for a drug like BEX?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, I could maybe say that the market for these types of drugs that are called immune checkpoint inhibitors is currently about $30 billion, and it's projected to grow for more than 15% during this decade. And the market is projected to be more than 100 million euros at the end of the decade. So the market is very big and it's growing, and there's very successful high-selling drugs. The BEX's mechanism of action is a little bit different from most of the drugs in this category. So that kind of gives a nice niche for BEX, that it's not a direct competitor to those drugs and some upcoming generic competitors. So that kind of gives a nice niche. There are some drugs in the pipeline in other companies that are kind of coming with the same approach than BEX. So in our view, the competitive angle is pretty good with BEX. So they are not directly going where the most competition is at the moment.
From a prudent investor's perspective, I think it's very probable that Faron goes actually bankrupt. And there are so many risks. For example, it's not free to develop a drug. It takes a lot of money, so they have to finance it somehow. They might have to dilute the share count, which of course means that from a present investor's perspective, they get less future cash flow from themselves. But on the other hand, there's of course this very huge potential. I'm not going to say limitless, but as you said, the market is quite huge. So let's say if BEX is a huge success, then definitely the payoff is quite good for the investors. So how would you approach Faron as an investment, and how should investors think Faron at this situation?
Yeah, it's important to understand that there's a fair chance of losing capital on a permanent basis, and there's a certain chance to win big if the company is successful. And we look at those probabilities a little bit closer than in the report. So I think here diversification comes into play very, very heavily. So we definitely don't recommend for anyone to invest half of their portfolio into Faron. So something a little bit smaller, and it's very important to understand this kind of binary risk involved in the company. I could say that, you know, when we go into details, and let's not go into all the details now, but there are different paths to success for Faron. So now we talked about failure of the drug development or success of the drug development. There are commercialization deals with small drug development companies like Faron and bigger established drug companies. So there is a chance that Faron could be a target of an acquisition or part of a larger commercialization deal that could also kind of release the potential value that's in Faron. So there are also these kinds of paths forward. But so more details in the report about those.
Thanks, Antti, for comments. Let's hope all the best for Faron and see what's going to happen in the next 10 years.
Thanks, Verneri.